Welcome to ECC Nation. That's Will Ojanen, and I'm Jim Quist. And I could say that's, as our buddy Chris would say, that's Mr. Ojanen.
You know, how many years have we known him, and he's
Mr. Ojanen. I'm not. There's some.
it's okay. We love the guy, but
Yeah, there's something behind that. I'm
yeah,
some subtlety that I'm
yeah,
I'm thinking he's trying to convey to you, but I don't know
yeah,
what it is, and I'm not going to spend the time trying to figure it out. But I
yeah.
think
No, nobody listening cares.
yeah, it's amusing, you know. It's one of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
things. Hey, let's take a look at football. Will AP top 25 numbers: Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, FSU. Those are the top four. Later on tonight, we're recording on Tuesday. They're going to release it at around 9 o'clock. Typically, they release it at 7, so we're kind of missing out on the boat here a little bit. The CFP rankings are as follows: Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and FSU. Washington is at number 5. Now, other ACC teams, or as we like to say, ACC plus 1, Louisville at 11, Notre Dame 20, and UNC 24. So will it have an impact on where they go? Yes, it most assuredly will, especially Louisville. And speaking of teams going to bowls, wow, I'm not sure we had enough bowls to take care of all these teams this year. Here's how it lays out, man. Florida State's going to a bowl. Louisville's going to a bowl. North Carolina's going to the bowl. NC State's going to the bowl. Boston College is going to a bowl. Duke is going to a bowl. Clemson is going to a bowl. Miami is going to a bowl. Now, here's the interesting thing, Will. Virginia Tech is at 5-5. They need a win over NC State or Virginia in order to qualify. I would say that that's probably a likelihood. Okay, so there's another bowl team. Here's where it starts getting interesting. Georgia Tech is 5-5. They need a win over Syracuse or Georgia. No, one of those.
Better get it done this week.
So you better give it your best shot when you face Syracuse. That's all I can tell you. Now, Syracuse is 5-5. They're in somewhat of a dilemma here too. But I think that Syracuse can make it. They've got Georgia Tech and then Wake Forest. So
Can certainly happen.
that looks pretty good. Now, Wake Forest, they're at 4-6. So it's a long shot here. But they have to beat the likes of Notre Dame and then Syracuse, and you gotta throw both of them in there. There's got to be 2. So odds are not going to happen this year. So,
I mean, Notre Dame is a far more talented team, but we've seen them have some hiccups on offense. So.
I think Sam wants to deliver. He has been.
It's a revenge. I mean, we joke it's a revenge game, but he owes his career to Wake, so it's not like there's bad blood there.
I think he ought to just throw the game. I did not say that. I did not say, because if it happens, that I don't want to be the guy that everybody comes after and says he knows something. He knows something. I don't know squat. Okay, you ought to know that by now. If you've been following long enough, you know I know nothing. Let's get into the games. A real quick review of all of these games. On Thursday of last week, it was Louisville with a 31-24 win over Virginia. And that was a fascinating game. There were some things in that, a lot of question marks. I would just say this: Virginia is coming along. Next year, this would not be the same outcome. That's my thought.
We'll see. I do think that Virginia is playing a lot better. Let's get that out of the way. They're 2-8, but eight of those 10 games have been one score games and going into at some point in the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
Um, I think they all but the Maryland game. I think Maryland was obviously that got out of hand because Calandry kind of melted down a little bit. After I think they threw like picks on like 3 consecutive possessions or something like that. And then they beat William and Mary by a couple scores. But everything else has been a one score game. So they've been right in it with teams that they probably have no business being competitive with, like Louisville.
Like Louisville.
And
Yeah.
yeah, they didn't play like yeah, Virginia played, like I said, they played well. Anthony Colangia had over 400 yards of offense by himself. 314 through the air, 89 on the ground. There was a point in the second half where he was the whole offense, where he was running it a lot, which I was surprised about, just because he. I'm just kind of worried about, especially since he's technically the backup, and we don't know the status of Tony Muskett
Right.
right now.
I think Muskett's out for the year.
Yeah. I know on the depth chart released today he was an or, but we'll see. I think at this point it would make sense to just start Calandria for the rest of the year
Yep.
and just ride with him through the good and bad.
Yep.
Unless he gets hurt, and then you bring in Muskett.
Exactly.
Again, Louisville, their best weapon is the ground game, and we saw Jawar Jordan had 95 yards in this game. Isaac Guerrero had 94, 73 of them were on a long touchdown run. Uh, they averaged almost 6 yards a carry. Obviously, some of that elevated by the 73-yard run, but they ran the ball real well in this game. Plummer was okay, did throw a pick, threw a couple touchdown passes. Officiating got a lot of scrutiny in this game for missing some calls on Virginia. It was the first drive of the game. There was a personal foul call on Stevens that which yeah, he did what he did, but at the same time, if you look at the replay, it was kind of the Louisville defender had his hand all up in Stevens' face, so that should have been offsetting. And there was another play where they called a face mask on Malik Washington towards the end of the game, where again should have been a hands to the face on Louisville, should have been offsetting again. And then on the Virginia's last play, that was definitely a penalty on Louisville. But again, it doesn't guarantee anything.
Yeah.
They could have still not gotten the tying score, but again, it can be a bit frustrating when refs miss so many egregious calls. But again, credit to Louisville, they didn't play their best game, but they got the win. They play Miami next week, and we can get more into that in a little bit. But again, they took care of business at home, and that's what matters.
Yeah, ultimately, that's all that matters. And one thing that I really want to point this out to people. People go, "Oh my gosh, well, maybe Louisville's not as good as everybody's talking about." It was 7 points between them and one of the bottom teams in the conference. I think you need to take a really closer look at, again, something that Will pointed out here just a moment ago about how close Virginia has been. They're right at that point where they're going to turn the corner. They don't have everything together yet. They don't have all the personnel that they need, but they're daggone really close and they're competitive.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're keeping it within one score, that means that you're playing a solid team that has been getting better, and they're going to give you a run for the money if you allow them to. And that door is always open in sports.
Mm-hmm. And remember, Louisville has one loss, and it's to Pitt of all teams in a game that it wasn't even they lost by 17 and really wasn't all that close.
Yeah.
But on Virginia, we talk about it. Let's going through there. Had a 1-point loss to JMU, 3-point loss to NC State, 3-point loss to William and Mary, 3-point loss to Miami. That was in overtime. Obviously, got blown out by Georgia Tech, and then a 7-point loss to Louisville. So this team has been absolutely in it, and just a play or two away from a couple more wins. We should also mention while we're here, continued positive vibes for Paris Jones.
Yeah.
he is still in the ICU in Louisville. Had a really scary injury. He had spinal surgery, is still there. Definitely one of those things you do not like to see on a football field. Yeah, hope he, like I said, he's doing well. I know he got the FaceTime with Coach Elliott on Tuesday as we record. So, it's going to be a long road back, but at least he's doing better.
Yep. That's a positive. Good hospital that he's at too, but they take good care of people there. So,
Yeah, just want to give a quick shout out to a friend of the show, Jeremy, because he had reached out to me on Saturday trying to get information on sending good get well cards for Paris. And so I reached out to friend of the show, Jackie Franchuli, and she was able to get the information for me. So, thanks to her for that, and thanks to Jeremy for helping, getting the word out to the Louisville faithful.
This is the thing that this is sort of off track just for a second, but the very first radio station that I ever worked at is celebrating their 75th anniversary today. And a pretty tight-knit group of people, a lot of really good people who have stayed in touch with one another and have been supportive, and no matter where you go and how big you get or whatever you do, if you get out of the business, et cetera, et cetera. And today there were a lot of interaction between some of these people, some of the people who are older, who were there, when it was the 25th anniversary, et cetera, et cetera. The one thing that I and what I'm leading up to here is that the people that are in sports, who report on sports, Jeremy is a good example, and Jackie as well, is that people they care, and they're good people. They're really good people, and this is the type of thing that people do. It doesn't make any difference if it's a player from another team or not. This is just a thoughtful thing to do, and I can't say enough good things about Jeremy and Jackie as well, and all of the people that we work with. They're just good people.
Yep, most definitely. I mean, Jackie definitely. Jeremy, yeah, I'm just kidding. No, we gotta give Jeremy hard. We love Jeremy. We just like to give him a hard time.
Yes, and he'll return it.
Yep. Oh yeah, most definitely.
All right, let's get into some of the rest of these games. We've got a whole boatload here. Saturday was Virginia Tech with a big win over Boston College, 48-22. And that's another team that's starting to show they're slowly but surely turning the corner. I go week to week sometimes wondering if they're almost there or not, because it's just been too much of a jumble, for me to totally get on board and say, well, the Hokies, they've turned that corner, or they're just about to. But this was a big win.
I think it really says something about everybody from like 4th to about 10th or 11th in the ACC that there's no difference between them. Like it's just a lot of meh. That's the reality of the situation. I was looking up at the ACC standings while you were talking, and somehow NC State, Virginia Tech are tied for 3rd. Like NC State has had a brutal offense all season. Virginia Tech just recently got drubbed by Louisville, the same Louisville team that almost lost to Virginia, and looked non-competitive in the game. Yet they turn around the next week and blow out Boston College on the road. But I've made this point on Twitter that yeah, Virginia Tech has had, a good season, but they'd also up until Saturday beat the bottom three teams in the league. So they really hadn't proved it. And Boston College has kind of gotten by on a little bit of luck. They obviously nearly lost to Holy Cross at the beginning of the season. Um, barely beat Virginia, barely beat Army, barely beat UConn, barely beat Syracuse. So they've been getting by with a little bit of luck, and this was kind of one of those luck runneth out type of games. And it really, like, it happened right away when Boston College turned it over in the first possession, and Virginia Tech went and got a field goal out of it, and it just was never the same. I mean, it was 31-7 at halftime, and it just ballooned from there.
Yeah.
Kyron Jones had a huge game, 219 through the air, 135 in the ground. It was all about him. He has been, like you said, it's one of those blessings in disguise that Grant Wells got hurt, because Virginia Tech would be in a lot worse shape. I mean, I think eventually they would have gone to drones, but his injury kind of precipitated that need. Um, yeah, it was kind of, the Hokies ran for 363 yards on in this game, averaging 7 yards a carry. That's kind of, tells you, I mean, they had almost 600 yards. Actually, they did have exactly 600 yards, if my math is correct, of offense. That's unbelievable. There's not much to say on the positive side for Boston College. I mean, they turned it over a bunch. They ran the ball okay, but I mean, it was not a very good effort. I mean, like I say, Virginia Tech just blew them out, and say BC's still going to a bowl. Yeah, that's cool. That's good. I mean, we're the way things began. You didn't think that was going to happen. Like you said, Virginia Tech needs one more win. They definitely have a shot in both weeks. They'll definitely be favorites in both games. But they're also pretty. They're going to be toss ups. I think both games are winnable and losable at the same time.
Yeah. And what happens after that, bowl wise, is going to be also a toss up. Next up is Clemson over Georgia Tech, 42-21. You can take a look at this a lot of different ways. Clemson, I think, is in a rebuild. If I don't know if that's the right word to use or not, but they're not the Clemson that we're used to. At the same time, Georgia Tech is building, and they're more of a handful than people anticipate. So there was a degree of competitiveness here that you may not have expected in that final score, 42-21. Kind of gives you a little bit of a feel for where each team is. I expect Clemson to be a lot better next year. I also expect Georgia Tech to be a lot better next year as well. So, you can just take this whole thing this year and just toss it out the window with both these teams.
Yeah, it's just been a weird season for Clemson. Really, Georgia Tech came out, got the first touchdown. So it was set, they were up 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, and then they just, I don't know, for whatever the reason, was like Clemson just did the Undertaker gift. They just sat up and realized they're Clemson. 40,
Yeah.
Scored 21 points in the second quarter. Pretty much dominated from there. Wasn't like a big statistical game. I mean, they ran the ball for 260 yards, averaging almost 6 yards a carry. Kate Klubnik threw 4 touchdown passes in this game. Again, Clemson became bowl eligible. You've still good. No matter what happens, still going to be a disappointing season for Clemson.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech, like you said, they got one game to do it. Again, forget the game. Haynes King threw 4 picks in this game. The bright side, Jamal Haynes had 100 yards rushing in this game. Look, he was, like I said, the lone bright spot, but Georgia Tech, they've got to get it done against Syracuse, because they sure as hell aren't beating Georgia.
No. Though Georgia hasn't been the Georgia of the past either. So I don't see
Right.
anything miraculous happening here, but nonetheless, you never know. Next game is NC State over Wake Forest 26-6. I'm not too surprised by that final outcome. Disappointed in Wake this season.
Undoubtedly. Again, credit to NC State because their defense has still been rock solid all season long, giving them a chance to win just about every game. I mean, Notre Dame game, that's a different story. That otherwise defense has been pretty. I mean, yeah, you can argue the Marshall game too, but especially the last few weeks, I mean, held Miami to 6 points as well. You know, held Clemson to 17. They have really been strong this season. And a lot of the reason they're sitting at 7-3 right now and 4-2 in the league. The news came out during the week that MJ Morris was going to redshirt the rest of the season, potentially transfer. We'll see. But so Brennan Armstrong got the start. Not a whole lot going on the air, but he had 96 yards and a touchdown on the ground. NC State ran for 266 yards in this game. Wake Forest ran for a grand total of 21 inches. They're 21 feet on the ground, 7 yards on 18 carries. That's not very good.
And I'm laughing because it's so absurd.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Just it kind of goes back to the first year of when Wake was just getting going under Clawson, and they struggled so much to run the ball. But then they didn't have a run longer than 7 yards in that game. It just shows a lot. Not to mention NC State got 3 more sacks in this game. And they're just, like I said, Wake's O-line has been a complete disaster this season, which is a bit of a surprise because they've always been pretty steady when it comes to just getting guys developed, and it just hasn't worked this year for whatever the reason.
Yeah, nothing clicking there at all. Next game up, Florida State over Miami, 27-20. A lot of people would look at that and scratch their heads and go, well, that's got to impact the CFP. Washington's going to leap over FSU because of that performance. And Will said,
yeah, it was again, that was kind of like, I feel like Florida State has been having this reputation of playing to the level of their opponents a lot this season. They're still winning, but you got to be careful with that, obviously. Jordan Travis played well. Obviously, Trey Benson looked really good. I thought the defense was spotty. It had its moments, but at the same time, gave up some big plays in this game. Thought they gave up some big runs on the ground, which is a little surprising. Emory Williams started this game, was 8 of 23, threw a couple touchdowns. One of them was on a play where 2 FSU defenders ran into each other, and it kind of sprung the Miami receiver free for a touchdown. He got hurt in this game. Pretty scary looking injury. He got air cast and a cart came out again, which, yeah, I'm done with air casts and carts and stuff like that for a while. No, don't want to see that anymore. So Tyler Van Dyke came in, didn't look any better. 2 of 7, 29 yards, threw a game-winning pick. It was kind of on a situation where nobody was open, and he just kind of YOLO balled it and ended up with a Florida State defender. But we have Florida State doing what they needed. They're 10-0. One more conference game coming up. Well, no, take that back. They're actually done with their conference schedule. They finished 8-0. Yeah, they have They play North Alabama next on the CW.
Yeah.
And then close the season with Florida, but they are locked into the ACC championship game.
I would watch very carefully that Florida game.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge one for them, just for obviously rivalry game. It's in the swamp. They would love nothing more than to try to ruin a special season by the Noles.
Yeah. If I were Mike Norvell coming into that game, I would be pumping my guys up big time, and I would put the pedal to the metal and never let up.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that seriously. I don't care what the score is in the fourth quarter. You need to destroy Florida for a variety of reasons, not just because they're a rival, but I think you need to make that final show that, okay, you guys disparage the ACC all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to throttle an SEC team that has been a perennial power to some degree,
Yeah, yeah.
and they need to do that. They absolutely need to destroy them. And I hate to I hate to preach that, but I'm just saying I think that is the way that you go in to that college football playoff, and you have earned some respect. So I think
Yep.
people think I read stuff because I'm a Bears fan. I read a lot of stuff from their message boards and whatnot, and most of those people are Big Ten fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are Big 12, but most Big Ten. And boy, you want to talk about disparaging the ACC? It's just like, well, first of all, they have no clue what the hell they're talking about when it comes to their own team. So I throw that out the window. But then, you start talking about the ACC and making light of things, and you're not looking at the Big Ten and what a crap fest that's been this year. So,
Yeah, when Iowa could win 10 games.
yep. All
That's
right.
all we need to say.
Next one. All right. Syracuse over Pitt, 28-13. Pitt.
Did Pitt quit? God.
What? Man, seriously.
Like, I really have no idea what to say about this game.
There's really nothing to say. Seriously.
Yeah, it was just all of a sudden Syracuse tried to be like Army, and it's another New York school, but 66 runs, 8 passes in this game.
Worked.
Yeah.
I tell you, it worked.
It worked. 382 yards rushing, almost 6 yards a carry. Yeah. I mean, that's not. Do you know Baber's MO? He wants to run tempo and run the ball or throw the ball a lot. Not in this case. But like you said, it worked. The bringing in Dan Villari, who's who's not a quarterback by trade, to go 3 of 5, 12 yards. Ooh, yeah. 17 carries, 154 yards. LaQuint Allen, 28 carries, 102 yards. Oh, and Gary Schrader had 14 carries for 96 yards too. So it literally was like a triple option offense type game. And Pitt, came in, you figured they were still going to have a really good D line. It just got shredded in this game. And I can't figure out why Pitt has been so bad this year. Dracovic started the season, he didn't look very good, but the backup hasn't been much better. And you get the sense they're going to change offensive coordinators after the season.
Something's going to change.
Something has to change. And I'm not convinced it's going to work, because after that, I think outside of that 2-year stretch where they went to the, with Kenny Pickett and whatnot, and in the year, Narduzzi hasn't done much in his career.
No.
As Pitt. I remember the year before, when there was a game against Penn State or something like that, where he kicked he attempted an 18-yard field goal or something like that, and he missed it. And it's just, I don't get it. I think there's a lot of issues with Pitt, and I think, you got to change the OC to try something different, but I'm not convinced that's going to fix everything.
I don't think that's the problem. So
I mean, when your head coach calls out your team the way he did,
that's inexcusable. But
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what the transfer portal looks like out of Pitt.
yeah, that puts for me that puts him on the hot seat.
Potentially, yes.
I I just right at this moment, I mean, realistically, I'd say it's a warm seat. But
Yeah.
if I were, if I think if I were to stand back and look at the entirety of his work and where I want to be,
Mhm.
I would go, this isn't the guy for us. Now, that's my perspective. And I know a lot of people are very supportive of Pat Narduzzi, and I think he's a good coach on different levels, different ways. And but again, we talk about this, about how you can build a foundation, but you got to have somebody else to build the house. And I'm wondering if that's not the case with Pitt, because it's got to be frustrating for everybody to watch this every season. You know, I can go back through any of the reporting and columns and everything else that we've done for years and years. And the one thing that always comes up on a regular basis, roller coaster. Yep. And 1 or 2 years of that, I get it, but
Yeah.
not all the damn time. Get rid of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just think it's his time has come. So that's me again.
And
And people are going like, who gives a crap what you say? Well, you know what? You want to win. You want to get somebody in there who knows what the hell they're doing and has some kind of fire in their gut and makes a change and brings Pitt back into some sort of relevance. Because right now,
right.
you suck.
Yeah. And if you are listening and don't give a crap, still thank you for listening or
Yeah.
watching us on
Yeah.
YouTube. But yeah, I think there's got to be a point where you have to, when you're partnering, you got to adapt to the way things are going nowadays, and just the way collegiate sports is.
Yeah.
And you got to, and I don't know what Pitt's NIL situation is. I'm not going to sit here and act like I do, but you got to be, you got to try to use as much as you can, because obviously it snookered them a couple of years ago with Jordan Addison going to USC. He's balling out for the Vikings, so it doesn't matter. I love him. But anyways, yeah, you gotta be the whole athletics program has to do a better job, really.
Yeah. All right. Last game, North Carolina over Duke, 47-45. This is one of the games that the message board people were going off on. Oh, North Carolina's nothing. They just barely beat Duke in 2 overtimes, 47. Excuse me. At the beginning of the season, do any of you remember the fact that Duke was a ranked team? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and it's not as if they're not a good football team, because their quarterback got taken out of the scene, their primary quarterback, which made a huge difference. Yes, and that's part of the reason why they disappeared from the rankings, etc. But they're still a good team. 47-45, 2 overtimes. That must have been fun as fans who were there watching in person.
Yeah, 100%. I Again, this was another game where officiating was sketchy. There was a play. I remember one play stuck out towards the end of the game where it was a pass, and it looked like the Duke defender picked it off, and then the Carolina defender like put his hands on it or something like that, and they called it a completion, and they never bothered to review it. Which, yeah, let's just say ACC refs had a rough weekend.
Yeah.
But still a game effort from the Blue Devils, because
Yeah.
when you figure they were playing what amounts to their third string quarterback, Grayson Loftus threw 3 touchdown passes in this game, but it was all about, Jordan Waters, 113 yards, couple of TDs, and looked really good on the ground again. But it was, Drake May, 342, looking like, 342 and a touchdown. Amari Hampton, 169 and a touchdown. Tez Walker, 7 for 162. He, ever since he became eligible, he's been a big time coup for that offense.
Yeah.
And the emergence of Amari and Hampton too. But still a big win for Carolina, and they're going to stay in the rankings. Obviously, 8-2. A couple games left. I'm trying to remember who they were. They are finishing with Clemson and NC State, both on the road, both winnable. We'll see. Clemson and Death Valley is still going to be tough, but I think they can win that. And then at NC State, rivalry game. I mean, NC State beat them last year with a 4-string quarterback, so it's not like it's not going to be one of those games where you automatically expect Carolina to handle them.
This is one of these. The end of schedule for them is tough, and in my mind, they need to have good showing in both of those games. They either need to be close as possible, like they did with this Duke game, or they have to have really good wins over both Clemson and NC State in order for people to be confident in them and to remain in the CFP rankings, which are the only thing that counts now. AP and coaches polls don't, whatever. That's just water cooler, and it's not even. We don't even use water coolers anymore, at least not in my world. But they need to do something. That's a team also that, for me, they have a little bit of this up and down thing going on through their season. They're not as much of a roller coaster as Pitt, but golly, Ned, there's a lot of inconsistency with the Tar Heels that absolutely drive me nuts. And when you have top quality people like Drake May and Tez, you shouldn't be having these games where you're just all over the place. I don't know what it is. I don't know where the inconsistency is coming from or why. Whatever it is, stop it. Clean it up. You want to be a ranked team, you get respect, which I know that North Carolina wants. Well, do something about it. Clean it up. What can I tell you? All right, coming up.
I remember they lost to Virginia earlier in the season, so it's not. So it goes without saying. They've obviously struggled at times, even with other opponents outside of Virginia. Remember they nearly lost to App State. They had a 6-point game there. Obviously lost to Georgia Tech by 4. So it's not like they've had their moments this season, but then you lose to those teams who you're clearly more superior talent wise.
Appalachian State, they do that voodoo doll thing with teams that they play. I'm telling you, that's what they do.
Must be.
And it works apparently pretty effectively. Hey, there's only 2 weeks of ACC regular season football left, and then we get into the ACC championship in 4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And so coming up this week on the schedule, on Thursday, we've got Boston College at Pitt. Any thoughts on that game?
I know BC is a little bit banged up, so we'll see how healthy they are going into that game. But still, I really don't know I feel like I said, it feels like Pitt is in quit mode, but I could also see them coming up and beating them. But I feel like I probably would take Boston College in this game.
Okay. Louisville and Miami. Feels kind of like Miami's air is going out of the balloon here.
Oh yeah, let down spot after an emotional game against your rival. I know Louisville's a 1 point favorite, but I would put a lot of money on them to win.
Duke and Virginia.
Yeah, it's so funny. Duke's a 3.5 point favorite in this game. This game in Charlottesville. Uh, I'm very intrigued. Like I feel like I would take Duke to win no matter what. I feel like their defense is going to be too good. Um, and I feel like I don't know. I don't know if Virginia's defense can stop Duke's rushing attack. That's kind of where I'm at. Now, could Calandria suddenly ball out and have a huge game and win? I can see that, but I'm going to be a little leery about that right now.
Scott Stadium is a cursed place for ACC
Yeah.
teams. I've seen teams, and so have you. You and I have been together for one of those games where somebody who was supposed to win came in and got their butts kicked. Um, Wake Forest versus Notre Dame. Okay, I don't even
Yeah.
know that you need to say anything here.
Yeah, there's not much. Notre Dame's a 24.5 point favor from the spread I've got in front of me here. That's kind of crazy, but
Yeah.
like I say, it just says a lot about the state of Notre Dame or Wake Forest right now. Again, they need this for bowl eligibility. It's Sam Hartman revenge tour game, but I just don't think they're not gonna win this game. Sorry to say. Yeah.
North Carolina and Clemson. Like you mentioned, it's Death Valley time, so this
Yeah,
could be a real battle.
it's one of the toughest environments to play at in all of college football, really. Yeah, and I know Clemson's 6-4 by their standards, having a tough year, 3-4 in the ACC. And Carolina, their offense is humming, can compete with just about anybody. And I feel like this game is like the line in front of me has Clemson 6.5. I feel like this is a pretty even game to me. Yeah, I probably would still lean Clemson just because it's the home team. But if you tell me North Carolina is going to win on the road, I can certainly see it.
Next up is NC State and Virginia Tech, and I tell you what, trap game.
This one's tough. Like both teams are 4-2 in the league. A State 7-3 overall. Virginia Tech's 5-5 overall. Tech's a 2.5 point favorite, and this is definitely one of those games I'd shy away from a betting aspect. I don't like. Yeah, I think like this is a real toss up, and I think that's baked into the point spread. Like NC State's got a really good defense, but Virginia Tech has a better offense. That's kind of where I'm seeing it. I don't even know where to lean in this game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, a home advantage is a little bit, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's enough. We'll see. It'll be a good game. So, Pack and Hokies, we can't go wrong with that. Northern Alabama takes on FSU. I don't think there's anything really to discuss there other than FSU is basically winding down their season. I hope they do it the
Yep.
right way and don't have any surprises. And then our final game on the list is Syracuse and Georgia Tech. This could mean bowl eligibility for one of these teams. And because it's at Georgia Tech, I would say I'm going in that direction.
It's the eligible to in the nightcap, and I think I would agree with you, Jim. Georgia Tech, when obviously last week aside, it was kind of a rough outing, but Clemson again, it's Clemson at home. What do you expect?
Yeah.
I do think I think I would go with the Yellow Jackets with you here. I feel like what they've been able to do on offense is key, and I'm just I'm kind of curious to see what Syracuse's game plan on offenses are going to try. If you know what though, if they go out and do that same kind of offense they did this week against Georgia Tech, I think they can win. Georgia Tech is one of the worst run defenses in all the country, and if they might have to do something like that to get to that sixth win.
Well, whatever you got to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we sporadically talk about hot seats for coaches, and we've sort of thrown in a little bit this week. Out of how many coaches do you think are on the warm seat in the ACC? And you don't have to name them, but just How many do you think might be on a warm seat based upon their performances so far?
Warm, I would say, let's see. I mean, as of right now, one sticks out.
Okay.
I don't know. Like if we're going to project to 2024, there will be more, but I'm not ready to go there. There's so many things going on between now and next season. I don't want to project that, but I think I see one for sure. But again, I don't know. I don't know if I would make a change. I mean, unless you feel like you can do better in their situation, I'm not convinced.
And it's not easy to do, unless, of course, you have 75 plus million to throw around. Boy, that's stupid.
Like I tweeted on Sunday, when I grow up, I want to be a fired football coach.
Sounds like a plan, man. Well, that's ACC Nation for this moment. We've got more coming up this week. Keep it right here on ACC Nation. We invite you to subscribe and watch us on YouTube, our podcast. You can listen to us 24/7 on ACC Nation Radio. By the way, on ACC Nation Radio, we do have some other content that you will not see or hear the podcast or YouTube. So often we have updates about what's going on sports wise. And it will sometimes include that in this portion of it. But there's a lot of other news that's going on that we include on the radio side. So if you want to check that out, simply go to our page at accnation.net. We've got the connections there, the links for the podcast, for radio, and for YouTube. And thank you, as Will said earlier, thank you. We really do appreciate you following, watching, listening, and always appreciate any comments that you want to throw at us, whether they're good or bad. Until next time, cheers.
Oh.